What is up, Watch fam? Happy Thursday, and welcome to this week's episode of AskTNH Live. I'm Christian from Theo and Harris, and today we are live on Instagram at Theo and Harris, answering some Watch Geeks live questions. So I can't wait to see what they throw my way, and I'm going to do my best to give them some good answers. Let's do it. All right, before we jump into it, a quick wristwatch check. I am wearing my personal vintage Cartier. It's a tank, it's a musty Cartier, meaning it is a vermeil watch. It's plated gold, not solid yellow gold. One would expect that would, put me off because I see so many incredible watches. Why would I settle for something that is plated rather than solid gold? But for me, I think I've been pretty clear in the past, my passion for Cartier is in the classic designs, and although condition is very important, and it is very important, the solid gold doesn't necessarily swing me one way or the other. I love these vintage vermeil watches, obviously enough to call one my own. So all right, let's jump into your questions here. Okay, so someone on Instagram just asked, for a first Rolex, should they go pre-owned or should they go brand new? And ultimately that really comes down to who you are. To me, the logical answer is pre-owned, no doubt. If you want modern, go pre-owned. If you want vintage, it is by default pre-owned, right? Unless it's new old stock, but it's still pre-owned, basically. The benefit of going pre-owned modern, if you are in that modern world, is one, you really don't have to compromise on your condition. Modern pre-owned watches can be just absolutely mint, worn a handful of times, or even in some circumstances, never worn. They've just left the Rolex authorized dealership and they've floated around different dealers. This happens. This is not necessarily uncommon. But even if the watch has been worn a couple of times, I don't have a problem with that. Again, I wear vintage watches. The watches that I wear and call my own have been worn hundreds of times, thousands of times. So no, I don't take issue with a Rolex Submariner or an Oyster Perpetual having been worn, 30 times. If in fact that comes along with great savings. You can save $500, $800, $1,000, $1,200 if you do in fact go pre-owned. In fact, I just said the numbers for, entry-level steel sports Rolexes. You can go pre-owned if you go into the solid gold world and save $10,000. Think about it. The retail price on the Rolex Yachtmaster 2 in yellow gold, I believe is breaking $40,000. I think it's right above there. If you go pre-owned, first of all, no one notices. Not that it's a matter of deception, but there is no difference in the watch itself. And you can save $8, $9 grand, maybe even 10 grand. That's a lot of money. Even if you're spending $30,000 on a watch, obviously you have plenty of money, but I can't imagine someone wanting to, be frivolous and waste it. I think that one of the big reasons people do go, in fact, to the store is a lack of information. You can buy pre-owned watches from very, very reliable sources out there. You don't have to associate pre-owned with fake or with backdoor dealing. It's quite the opposite. There are plenty of great places to get pre-owned watches, and Theo and Harris is one of them. Okay, someone else wants to know, is it elitist to shun Franken watches? And that's a great question. And Frankenstein watches, for those of you who don't know, replacement parts, and not stock replacement. I'm talking about fake replacement parts. I'm talking about repainted dials. I'm talking about incorrect hands. I'm talking about different cases. A lot of different issues. No, it's not elitist to. Oh, geez, that's a good question. I think it's it comes down to what is elitist. I think it's probably elitist to shun anything that is material and unnecessary. It's probably just it's probably elitist to buy expensive watches. I don't know. But I don't think it's bad if you're trying to distance yourself away from Franken watches. That's a good thing. If you're wearing and owning Franken watches, you probably don't have the same 99.9% chance you don't have the same admiration for foremost originality, the history of a watch, the significance of stock parts, and the brand itself. So I probably wouldn't relate to someone who doesn't care enough to educate themselves as much. That being said, there are plenty of people that watch our channel and on Instagram and everywhere that don't know much about watches. And that's why they come to channels like Theo and Harris to educate themselves. And there's no problem with that. You can buy a Franken watch by accident and, it is what it is. But no, I think that any vintage watch lover will inevitably, with education, with knowledge, begin to distance themselves and kind of shun Frankenstein watches. Great question. Fluted or engine turned? Fluted or engine turned? That's a great question. My date just is fluted, okay? My dad's date just is fluted. Most of the dates that I've ever owned have been fluted, okay? I think that fluted bezel is so, I think it's objective. It's Rolex. I've made the statement, before that even in Omega's Globemaster, a fluted bezel watch, it's kind of not Omega. It kind of does take cues from Rolex. Even though there is precedent that Omega has manufactured fluted bezel watches since the 1950s, it's still a Rolex trademark. Do you know what I mean? They're not the only ones to do it, but they are the ones that do it. So for me personally, it ultimately ends up being fluted, but I can speak just as poetically about engine turned. Engine turned is a style, I think there's a lot to be said about the fact that engine turned is a mid-20th century style that vanished. That no longer really happens. It's something that is often mistaken for fluted by people who don't know any better, but that makes the conversation all the more interesting. The fact that this seriously, almost unmistakably Rolex kind of engine turned or unmistakably Rolex design is no longer. That's interesting to me. So I'd say for me, usually fluted, but damn, engine turned is amazing. But on that, we will end this week's episode of AskTNH Live. If you guys enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel at Theo and Harris. If you want more watch content, we release 4 episodes every week and at least 10 new additions to the watch shop at theoandharris.com as well. See you guys tomorrow.